So in this week's spiritual journey, we have Danielle Downey, the rapid transformation coach, and also author of It's No Secret, Thriving After Surviving. So I have my copy there. So welcome, Danielle.
Hiya.
How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. A little hot, a little sweaty, but I'm good.
Good. So I was saying to you before, I started reading your book, but I couldn't get very far through it because I was just in tears at sort of everything that had happened for you sort of as a child. And yeah, I didn't get very much further. So to say that your childhood was difficult is probably the biggest understatement in the world, maybe. But I just wanted to sort of speak to you a little bit about the resilience that you have, because you come across as such a confident, loving lady who seems to do like everything and anything for anyone. So what sort of steps or what have you gone through to be sort of like the person that you are today?
So I've always been very empathetic. I've always been very giving of my time and my love. I've got an awful lot harder in the last year, which is probably good. I think the ability to put in boundaries has been great.
Yeah.
I've always known that I had a lot of resilience, but I didn't know it was resilience as a child.
Mm-hmm.
So I always had, I don't know if you've ever seen those sorts of movies where the main character suddenly like drives on a map really quickly, and that's like the passing of time. And that's what I imagined my childhood to be, that wherever I stood, whatever difficulties and horrible stuff was happening around me, that at some point I would end up like not escaping maybe, but driving through that map really quickly, to get to the future where I was going to be. I realized very quickly I always had two choices. I could always use what was going on as an excuse, or I could just kind of put it behind me and use it to drive me on.
That's a really sort of like mature attitude to take as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a real maturity, and I realised very early on that if somebody needed something doing, or if I needed something doing, nobody else was probably going to do it for me. So I think the defining moment for me was laying a carpet in my bedroom. So my father had half laid a carpet in my bedroom. My bedroom was my sanctuary, and it drove me insane, this ruddy carpet folded up, and it was there for about a year and a half. And I'm a Virgo, so I'm quite tidy, not that you believe it the way my sofa looks at the minute. So I went downstairs, and I don't know the age particularly, because my childhood was so traumatic. I find it hard to remember ages. And got a Stanley knife and a saucepan and some tacks and laid this carpet, and nobody noticed. I dragged the rest of the carpet downstairs. Nobody noticed there was banging and all sorts of stuff going on. But the achievement I felt from that left me with do you know what, I'm going to have a bloody go, whatever it takes, and if I mess it up, it doesn't matter. So I think stuff like that happening meant that I've always had an ability, just a little bit more self-belief, perhaps. To say, I'm just going to crack on and do it.
Yeah, I love that. And having that attitude from such an early age, I suppose, has really stood you in good stead then for sort of like your adult life, if you like.
Yeah, it has, absolutely. I've done a lot of reading. Probably in the last year, I've done so much more healing than I have done. I've spent a lot of time healing. Sorry, ambulance outside. And I realise now that statistically, the children who are brought up in an environment where there's alcohol, where there's violence, where there's poverty, where there is an absence of figures that that matter, where there is abuse, especially sexual abuse and emotional abuse, sets you statistically to be frankly shafted. And I've looked into a lot of so why am I quite different? Have you heard of anything called ACE traumas?
No, I haven't heard of that.
ACE traumas are a psychological thing that they kind of measure childhood trauma through, and there's 10 of them, and I scored 8 on them.
Wow.
And statistically, the risk of suicide, drugs, alcohol, everything are huge. So I've read quite a lot recently about perseverance and persistence and resilience, and what makes one person carry on when somebody else turns to drugs. And I believe a lot of it's down to choice. A lot of it's down to that, actually. I'm not letting my past get in the way of who I am now. Yeah,
because some people, because there's that victim role, isn't there, when you've been a victim of abuse. So you can, again, it's about choice, isn't it? It's like, do I play the victim role, or do I actually say, actually, that's happened, I now need to sort of like find my way through, of, like you said, of healing myself and working on it, and getting through it. So I suppose as well, it's like, how do you, like, why do you think that you made that choice that you did? You know,
I think I didn't start to recall my abuse until I was nearly 40, maybe 38, 40. And I started to get flashbacks. So I'd always known I was different. I'd always known that I was very sexually precocious. I knew that stuff had happened, but I had no kind of gauge to say to me that definitely happened. What went on in my head was just it was like a recurring video that I couldn't shift, in black and white. And I started to work in the domestic abuse field with victims of abuse. And while I was doing a lot of driving, that was when I started then to I just got this really deep knowing that's what occurred. So I've gone through my adulthood always being quite feisty, quite never quitting, but I didn't quite put it from A to B. I always knew that I was a little bit different, and that my childhood was very traumatic, but I'd put to bed so much of the abuse, which is really common.
So you'd sort of like shut it all out and blanked it all out, and then was there anything that so I suppose starting working at the domestic abuse place started to bring the stuff back for you?
And I went through which I guess what an awful lot of survivors, victims go through, of the am I mad, have I just made this up, is this, am I absolutely nuts? In my book I describe how a family member revealed to me that she'd also been abused by my father. And that, for me, I can imagine that's how the victims of Jimmy Savile felt, or any of the high profile footballers. The ability to say, I am not mad, that really happened. And it was an elation. It was, much as I was sorry it had happened to her, it made me go, oh my God, actually that happened to me too, and I'm not nuts, because I'd felt crazy for so long. And I'd only ever told a few people. I told my husband, and I told a close friend, and then I had some counselling. So I think it was the ability then to be able to confront it, knowing that when I confronted it, it would open all sorts of doors, that perhaps it was going to take me down a path that perhaps was going to become really, really difficult with being believed.
So did you start off by having the counselling once you started to remember all this stuff that had happened? Was counselling your first port of call? Is that where you sort of thought, right, that's where I need to go first to get some help?
I'm quite logical, and I don't know now whether counselling was the best thing. I always say to people who sort of say to me, should I go and get counselling? You just need to be aware. It's like the reliving of your abuse. And it took me 5 sessions to actually say, right, okay, I'm ready. And I'd walked in again, that attitude of, I'm not going to be beaten by this. And I say in my book, maybe 4, maybe 3 sessions. Right, today's the day. I'm telling you what happened today. And I stuck a pillow over my head and I just told it. I told the counsellor what had happened, and with that came instant power. And that then led on to all sorts of other stuff that cropped up about family relationships and lacks of family relationships, and being let down a lot because I buried my head in the sand so much.
Because I suppose as well with counselling, it's like to walk in and just tell a stranger like all the ins and outs of your past life must be quite difficult. So it's about establishing that trust first, isn't it, with the person that you feel sort of safe with, and then I suppose it's like trying to recall all those memories and bringing them back must be quite sort of harrowing. And
I had 6 children at home at the time. I say that not like I've lost 4 of them, but I've now got 4 older ones that have left home, so I haven't lost them. But I had to go home after every session, and each session was an hour once a week, and still be functional with these children who had no idea. My husband worked away, so it was just me. And for the first 2 weeks of that sort of the trauma of even walking in through the door, it left me completely, I don't know, lost and alone. And it was a physical kind of symptom, that the trauma was physical.
I'm getting in my head, it's like, you know, when you go on holiday and you relax and then you come back, you always say, I need a holiday after a holiday. And even though I've never personally been to a counselling session, that's what I can imagine, that when you leave the counsellor's office, you're like, I need more counselling, because there's still, that's, like you said, you're left with this stuff and you don't know what to do with it. So
I've got friends who've had counselling and I've heard of people being in counselling for 15, 20 years, and I was never going to do that. my logical kind of, this is not going to box me into where I'm going, and I didn't quite know where my path was going at all, I was quite clueless, was that I was going to allow myself 6 to 8 sessions. And as the sessions went down every week, this deadline came nearer and nearer, and it was a case of, right, once these sessions are done, that's the line in the sand, then I'm moving on.
Yeah.
I didn't realise actually quite how simplistic that view was, and I've done so much more healing this year than I thought I was a lot more healed than perhaps I was.
Yeah.
But my healing this year has been about trying to get rid of the physical symptoms of the trauma that I've gone through, as opposed to what's going on in my head.
So what sort of other healing have you gone through then? So you start with the counselling, and then what else have you been drawn to? Because like, you know, often people are like, you'll go for a session on something, you think, oh, I'm healed, but then the universe is like, you think you're healed, we're going to send you something else, and they bring up more stuff, or they'll bring you a person in, and you're like, seriously? So what sort of path have you sort of followed? Where have you been taken?
I got very heavily 5 years ago into personal development, so that was kind of the start of my, okay, I'm dipping into this journey to be better, as in a better person, to be more than I was, and that got me into sort of positive mindset, mindfulness. It got me heavily into gratitudes. Yeah. In the last year, I've got really heavily into crystals. When we first met last September, which is a year ago, just about to come up, I was just starting to play with crystals. I remember listening to you talk about the power of these crystals, and you gave us that little speaker stone that I've still it's sat over there on the side. And I still put it in my pocket sometimes when I need to speak. Yeah. That led on to me looking more heavily into chakras. Yeah, chakras, yeah. And the fact that I felt really out of balance. So I then bought a couple of books about chakras and thought, actually, I'm screwed. Quite frankly, I'm really quite broken. And I'd started to get a lot of left-sided pain in my foot and my knee and my hip. And I then started to look more at physical attributes, trauma, and how it manifests in your body. And I've got an autoimmune disorder, which I've always believed was very heavily had come on from stress and trauma. That got me into sort of angel cards. All right, yeah. And Reiki. And my husband now thinks I'm a nutter. My husband thinks I'm a witch, so I burn sage. My crystals go outside in the moonlight. I've got tiger's eye, I've got malachite on, I've got a citrine pendant that I've had. This has been on and off for a year. It obviously goes out to be cleansed and stuff, but citrine for abundance and negativity has just been wowzers. Yeah. And then your book, having never had any kind of mental health issues, when my book came out, I got an awful lot of hate from my family, who called me a liar, because my dates and stuff as a child are a bit askew. I don't remember a lot of stuff accurately, and I do say that in the beginning of my book. This is down to my memories, and this is my recollection. That led to nearly 6 months of harassment and hate. And it was like being violated. It was horrific. I couldn't go anywhere on social media without somebody posting something vile. And that led to me having really bad anxiety. I couldn't go to the front door. I became virtually agoraphobic. I didn't tell anybody this. So on social media, I was still fairly present. What nobody saw was the fact that I was virtually suicidal, contemplating how many pebbles I might need to chuck in my pocket to throw myself in the sea. And I don't say that lightly. You know, that was a, can I do it? Can I? Would it hurt? Do I do it? And I was starting to kind of go through that cycle. And then I got your book, and your book, the bit about grounding and the bubble. And I think I was starting to get myself into a habit of being anxious. And I truly believe that the habit had come on. My body was having a response every time I went to the front door or the postman came, or I opened up social media. But your book literally, and it was like that, it was in an instant. It made me just kind of pull myself together. And I don't say that lightly, but I was able to put myself in this orange bubble. I was able to ground. And for the first time in 6 months, I didn't feel like I was swaying from side to side, like I was on a boat. And once I took control of that and started to really, really work with the grounding, and then got more into crystals and more into spirit guides, that shizzle works.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm pleased to say able to help you. It's like, the grounding and protection thing is just so massive, because we're so, you know, I tell everyone, I'm like, we're energy beings, not just human beings. And the stuff that goes on around you, like your family being so hateful, unless we've protected our energies, it's going to hit you from every single side. And like you said, it's going to make you feel like you're swaying, because you're like, where does my energy now end and where does theirs begin? And absorbing all that, like having to absorb all that hatred, bless you. It must have been a really
it was really tough. However, it's put me now on a kind of different path that has enabled me to stop and really take stock of the fact that I needed more time to heal. So the last 6 weeks especially, when I've started working with a spiritual healer, I've just put everything down. And I said to my husband, I'm not being lazy. I've got 46 years worth of healing to do, and I'm just taking time out for me. And this space that's given me to not have to, I'm not doing any work with clients currently as a transformation coach. I worked with my last 2 clients in August. And the ability to just say, actually, I'm just having some space for me to go to the gym, to be in nature, to do my cards, to have a sleep, to watch shit TV if I choose. It's really blissful.
Yeah, it's like, it's a massive thing, because you don't, like you said, you know, 46 years worth to try and do in a week or whatever. It's just not possible, is it? So so allowing yourself that time, you know, to be able to do it is like, it's like a gift to you and to your soul, isn't it? Because and what you'll probably find as you're working on yourself and doing this stuff over the next few weeks, when you come out of it and when you start working again, because you're in a better space, then your clients will notice that as well, and be more drawn to you, because you're going to be lighter, you know, you're going to just ooze like confidence, and you know, when your vibration lifts and everything else, it becomes higher. You just tend to attract the people who sort of like need your help the most.
That's what I was finding was that I was becoming exhausted working with clients, and I just thought, actually, this is wrong. And I was the spiritual healer I work with is Brazilian, and she said to me, you know, you need a black stone in your belly button, you need to make sure you've got your big pants on, which for me is quite alien. I didn't wear pants for such a long time, but now I do, because of my bottom chakra. And that again has just left me feeling so much more stable in a not swaying kind of thing, and my mind is clearer. My husband bizarrely says, you're so much quieter. And it's because I no longer have all this kind of stuff going on in my head. And because I'm not busy was my drugs and alcohol, I think, for 46 years. I've just written a piece in a book that comes out on the 2nd of October about busy was my drugs and alcohol. It was I chose not to drink. I have an addictive personality. I chose not to take drugs. But what I did do was try and kill myself into an early grave by being busy and being better and better and better. And part of my daily mantra now is I'm enough.
Yeah, that's a lovely mantra to have, Danielle.
I am enough, you know, that's my intention. I'm enough and I'm okay with that.
I think part of the busyness as well comes from sort of society's expectations on us as well. It's like, right, why are you not working? You know, because you should be working at least 9 till 5 Monday to Friday, and if you're self-employed, you should be working every single hour God sends.
Absolutely.
It's like, oh no, I didn't come here to just work. I came here to be and to feel alive, do you know what I mean? And to feel happy and to go out in nature and appreciate that, and to spend time, like you said, you know, just being.
I'm just getting to the stage now where, because I've always written, I know that I've got a couple of books kind of milling in the background, and I've just been to yoga this morning, and that last sort of, because it's Thai yoga, so it's all very breath orientated and quite slow, and I've been playing in the last couple of weeks with a new book that's with a title something like A Year in the Life of a Lunatic.
Oh, I love it. Not because you're a lunatic, but
well, but that's where I felt at the beginning of the year, and just kind of a journey into what's sort of taken me to now, and where will I be at the end of the year. And I'm noticing, because my mind is quieter, when stuff pops in, however it gets in there, I'm not sure that it feels really right.
So the thing that's popping into your brain where you're not sure, so those things are called downloads. So it's information from either the universe or spirit, whatever you want to call it. And when it feels right, that's what they're giving you. So they're giving you information, which you can then write down. and just helping to guide you on your path. So because you've got that clarity in your mind, it allows, and it's in that space, it allows the universe to just go, right, Danielle, why don't you write another book? Do you know what I mean? And because sometimes they give you stuff and in your mind you're going, really, do I want to do that? Do you know what I mean? But yeah, it's trusting that they know better than we do in our minds.
Yeah, and that's huge. I was a control freak, a complete control freak, and I had always trusted the universe. I'd always made very unconscious decisions that were always very right. Very little had happened that hasn't served me in the long run, and I'd always been able to put my trust in something. Whereas now I'm able to do it 100% and just say, actually, okay, this feels so right, intuitively and with my gut, with my soul. That's I'm just going to go on to that path, and if it's not right, I can come back. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's about, like you said, I mean, some people struggle to listen to their own intuition and that innerness because their mind is just so full of stuff that's not theirs either. You know, so like we get told stuff from our parents when we're younger, we get told stuff from teachers, we get told stuff from friends, and often our mind just ends up filling with everyone else's stuff except for ours, and then we'll forget who we are, and we'll forget what we believe in, what we're passionate about, what we love to do, and then we'll struggle to listen to our own intuition.
And I think that's part of my work now as a transformation coach, is that not just sorting out people's practical stuff. I think people sometimes are on a path and feel so lost. They've plodded a path for, I don't know, 30 years because they were told they needed a good profession, but they hate it. And they're getting nearer and nearer the death side. I know I'm certainly near the death side now at 46, but they hate it.
You've still got at least another 50 years, Danielle.
My great grand lives to 103, so I might just carry on. But part of me I used to feel like I was on a path of self-destruction almost. Whereas I now wake up every day and say, okay, let's do this again.
Oh, that's so amazing. And so you support women as well, don't you, who've experienced abuse, and you have a Facebook group, don't you, for women who have been in abusive, either childhood abuse or relationship abuse.
When I wrote my book, I felt really isolated, and I still feel like domestic abuse has got a higher profile. Childhood sexual abuse, and even I think adult sexual abuse with the Me Too movement has become much more prevalent. Childhood sexual abuse, when you think that 1 in 6 children have suffered childhood sexual abuse at some point, is huge. The statistics are bonkers. That means that in my class in junior school there were 5 of us, and nobody knew. Nobody told anybody because we don't tend to speak about it. So when my book came out, what I noticed was that when people read it, I was getting messages from people, some of whom I knew, some I didn't, saying to me, thank you, because what they had got was somebody else. It happened to somebody else, and they were able to say that's me too. And that led me to start a Facebook group called Speak Out Sisterhood, which you can find on Facebook. You can see the title, but you can't see who's in the group. And that's a safe community, really, because I do believe that once we start to acknowledge our abuse to ourselves, it doesn't have to be like I did, writing a book or standing on your soapbox, burning your bra. Sometimes it is just about looking ourselves in the mirror and saying, actually, that happened to me. I acknowledge it. I choose not to do anything. I choose to still see the perpetrator. I choose to just be okay with it. But knowing that there's community around you who has your back, who has walked somewhat in your shoes. Not everybody can walk in each other's shoes, but to hold your hand. And the power of that group has just been unbelievable.
No, it's I think it's a really, what's the word? I don't want to say the word good because it doesn't sound right, but do you know what I mean? It's got purpose, hasn't it? And it's got real value for people who maybe can't speak to their close family or even close friends about it. So knowing that there's a community of people out there who've been through similar things, that they can either sort of like talk about their experiences or contact you as well about it, I think is really, really not good. I need to find another way. It's of value.
There's lots of signposting goes on there, and I am quite vocal now. I'm not ashamed, to say this is what happened to me. It's not the first thing I tell somebody, but I certainly, when I say I'm an author, I tend not to say what I've written a book about. I didn't ever want to write a misery memoir. I was quite keen that my book, which is why I say actually perhaps flick through the chapters that you struggle with, because it gets better.
it's just being an empath, honestly. There's certain books and things
yeah.
that just that trigger, and yeah, I just, because you can, I think in your book as well, when you've been writing, like, you can truly feel you as a child. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So through you as a child, through your eyes, so it doesn't feel as if it's you now writing it. And I think that's, for me, was the difficult thing. I'm just like, oh, I just felt so much love for you as a child whilst I was reading it. And I was like, oh, I can't read anymore. I need to put it down for the minute and read it in sort of like bits. Yeah. So no.
Yeah.
So
and I'm still not sure where that path with my book is going to take me. I'm still not sure. I was compelled to write it. 3 days after it came out in November last year on Amazon. I pulled it for nearly a month.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the sort of hatred that went on.
Yeah.
And then my husband and a couple of close friends were just like, what are you doing? You know, but you've written this fantastic book. It's got raving feedback. Get it out there. And I kind of did it a bit like this. I'm just going to peek under the covers and just see what happens.
Yeah.
And I've just got braver and braver and braver. But yeah, just not sure where that path sort of, whether it's the path that I'm going to end up on, or yeah, not really sure. I'm open to the universe downloading stuff at the minute.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to get a copy of your book, Danielle, what's the best way for them to get it? Where can they get it?
So you can find it on Amazon under Danielle Downey, It's No Secret. I think it's $10.99 for paperback and $4.99 for download. It's not in the shops because I self-published through a publishing agency. So it's on there, and then you can watch out for my next one.
Cool. So, and if people want to get in touch with you, Danielle, as well, if they want to come and speak to you or to find you, where's the best place for them to find you?
So I've got a Facebook page called The Rapid Transformation Coach. Yeah. Or I am on Facebook under Danielle Downey. There are 2 profiles of me on Facebook. So the universe has a strange way of delivering. 2 days after my book came out, my Facebook profile that I'd had for 15 years, I used for my business, it had all my publicity stuff on, suddenly became unobtainable, inaccessible. Really? And nothing I have done since. I've been in copious amounts of emails with Facebook who are useless. Yeah. I have tried and tried and tried to get onto this bloody page, and I'm stuck in like a black hole loop with passwords. Yeah. So I think at last count I'd had like 65 passwords. Wow. And the last one was some expletive about you, Facebook. Because my frustration was huge. What I now realise, that was the universe protecting me. The universe just said, get off Facebook, the shit's going to hit the fan. Yeah. You're going to end up being publicly assassinated. Get off it. So I was actually off social media for nearly 4 weeks until I've made another profile. So I have got, if you went onto my old profile, it hasn't had any activity for well over a year. Okay. My new profile has the same sort of congruent picture. Yeah. So, and I can't even close. I even wrote a death certificate and emailed it to Facebook to say I died, to try and get them to close the other Facebook page. They chose not to believe I was dead. Oh.
I love the way the universe works, though, because like you said, it was obviously protecting you because it knew that you were going to be trolled or whatever on there. So yeah, it was a good way of like pushing you off. Fabulous. So what I'll do is, I'll put all the links like underneath this as well. So if anyone wants to get in touch with you or grab your book, they can do. So thank you very much, Danielle, for speaking to me today.
No, it's a pleasure, Lynn. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. I look forward to hearing more about your spiritual journey.
Thanks, darling. Take care. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.